Okay. Okay. I'll start the learning sponsors. Year of Learning Suanarni Gerlich in memory of Malka Perman and Philip Mann. And Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Enya Rivka Pro Rosner bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. In the memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Leslie and Gail Kaplan in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Mornester, Nechama Asner bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecher Nishmat Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. A month of learning by Lydia and Abe Krause's many friends in honor of their 50th anniversary. Josh and Carol Sanborn in memory of his parents, Chiena bat Aryeh Leib, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch. Jill and Perry Meltzer in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef. A week of learning by the family of Esther Shepatovsky in her memory, Esther Riva bat Betzalel. Sid Paris in memory of his father, Chaim ben Aaron Cohen, and we welcome Sid back from being up north. Okay. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Charlie's wife and Sam's sister, Menucha Sarah bat Yechiel Michal, and in memory of Sam's mother and Charlie's mother-in-law, Zissel bat Yehoshua. Leslie and Gail Kaplan in memory of his mother, Pesha bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi v'Tzipora. Andrea and David Dolney in memory of her mother, Evet Sina bat Shimshon. Okay, then we have today being the 22nd, right? I finally figured out how to read the calendar for both Hebrew and English, not just the Daf. Okay, Sandra Levine and Brenda Parver in memory of their father, Betzalel ben Avraham Yehuda. Also Sarah Roz in memory of her father, Shabsai ben Aharon. May Shemas have an aliyah, crank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shem Matzliah, and Lachol B'nai Israel, a good Gaben Shjar. Amen. All right. Okay. Okay, so we've got a few pages to look at today. On the bottom of Ted, we finished up really on the top of Ted Vav Amud Aleph yesterday. All right. Dov, Zev, you all right? Okay. Okay. So the Gemara finished up. Sheyu chotzot v'lo mityabmot, lo hispiku ligmor et hadavar ad shenit rafa hasha'ah. Okay, both Art Scroll and Koren indicate that war broke out and there was a difficulty, and therefore Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai could not come to a point that they could clarify and come to a final halacha. Okay, that's where we stop. Marvin, welcome back.
Thank you,
Okay, so what goes on? are we going to see that there was another, a later halacha or a later authority who made the halacha, okay, in this situation? Okay. So we're on Ted Vav Amud Aleph, right? The second line down on the Amud. Okay. And the Gemara tells us, Amarle Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Mana aseh lehem letzarot harishonot me'ata. What was going to happen then? Okay, because there were some women that did become involved in Levitical marriages, or men involved in Levitical marriages, and therefore we would say that their progeny would become mamzerim. What are we going to do? Okay, that's basically what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is asking. What should we do in this situation? And he's going to weigh both sides. If we do according to Beit Shammai, what's going to be according then to Beit Hillel? If we do according to Beit Hillel, what's going to be with Beit Shammai? So we can anticipate now where the Gemara is going to take us, right? Okay, let's go on then. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel asked the question, I amart b'shlema asu. If you're going to say, going back to our original question, that Beit Shammai actually followed what they said, right? Hainu dekamar. Here, then we can understand why Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Mana aseh. What should we do? Ela amart lo asu. But if you're going to say that Beit Shammai did not follow out, practically what they said, right? Mai mana said, then what reason would Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel have to say, what should we do? Now, an attempted answer. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, he says as follows, Lo nitzracha ela letzara atzma. No, we don't have to act, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, except for the tzara, for the co-wife, right? Umana aseh. And when Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, what should we do? Hachi kamar. This is what he meant to say. Okay? Hinach tzarot the Beit Hillel. You have these co-wives of Beit Hillel. The Beit Shammai, okay, who wound up getting married, okay, with the Beit Shammai men. Hechina avid laho. What are we going to do with them? Licholtzo, if we're going to suggest that they should do chalitza, mim aseh agvaraihu, they're going to be repulsive to their husbands. V'chitema lemi asan. And if you want to say, well, we could go ahead and tell them it's, that's what we got to do. And you might be repulsed. In other words, the husbands might be turned off or unhappy, whatever. We have a rule in the Torah. You're not supposed to enact certain things that are going to make life so terrible, particularly in regards to Ishut, Shalom Bayit, things like that. Okay, so that doesn't seem to be a viable option for us. Okay? Tashma, says the Gemara. Then listen to the following Braita. The Amar Rabbi Tarfon. Now, it's important for us to know, and I don't remember seeing it in Art Scroll, but I did see it in Koran, that Rabbi Tarfon supposedly was somebody who followed Beit Shammai. Right? Okay? And so that's important to keep in our minds, because maybe Rabbi Tarfon's response will help us understand whether it was asu or lo asu, and therefore what's going to be the following, agenda from that.
It is an old scroll because it says right there.
Oh, it did.
Okay.
Okay, I just didn't see it there, but I saw it in Koran. That's why I'm saying. It's not saying they didn't have it. Okay, I just didn't, right? Okay. Tashma. Listen to the following Braita, the Amar Rabbi Tarfon. He says, Ta'aveni, I have this yearning, he says. Matai tavot sarat habat. What time will come? The co-wife of the daughter, in other words, the co-wife of his daughter, right? Liadi ve'esa'ena. And she will come into my situation. Okay, in other words, she will fall to me as Yabama. Ve'esa'ena, and I will marry her. Now that seems rather a problematic statement on the part of Rabbi Tarfon. Number one, both Art Scroll and Koran tell us, why should he be wishing that his brother or his son-in-law be dead? Okay, that's one problem. Number two, why should he be so? So the only way I could justify personally Rabbi Tarfon's statement is that if I wish, I might have the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of Yibum, okay, and particularly do it under the more stringent format of Beit Shammai. That's the only way I could justify his statement. Erwin, you don't like that.
Tongue in cheek, just to get people's attention. He didn't really want to do it, but he made it this way. They set up.
He was famous for saying things like that.
Right.
And he paid dearly for it too.
Okay, all right.
His family didn't survive.
Okay, well, you may guys be right. I tried to give him dam l'chafsachut. That's all I could do. Okay, anyway. So,
We could say, I swear my children.
what?
How come they haven't said, if people say, I swear my children, don't say.
I swear by my children. No, I understand you're saying, Marty. I'm not disagreeing with you and Erwin. I'm just saying, right? Ema va'asiena. So I would say, says the Gemara, so just let him say he would like to marry her. Why did he have to say, right? Vaha,
I'll marry her to somebody else.
right? Va'asien, right. So in other words, instead of va'asaena, that I will marry her, Ema, I would say, in other words, the Gemara wants to say, rather criticizing him, va'asiena, and I will marry her off to somebody else. That's what it's saying. Okay? Vaha ta'avani ka'amar. But the Gemara says, hey, but look, he just said, I yearn to do this. Right? La'afuki midirabi Yochanan ben Nu'uri. No, this comes to exclude the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nu'uri, namely that all tsarot have to perform chalitza. That was his view. Okay? All right. Tashma. Maaseh b'bito shel Rabban Gamliel. Now we have an incident with the daughter of Rabban Gamliel. Shahaitan Nisu'ah la'aba achiv. That was she was married to, okay, Rabban Gamliel's brother, right? La'aba achiv. To Abba, that was his first name. Achiv, his brother, the brother of Rabban Gamliel. Okay? In other words, remember we said that was considered a yichus dika marriage for a niece to marry her uncle. Okay? Right? And somebody in the Shir said they actually had that even in Eastern Europe about their grandfather or somebody about that. I don't remember who it was. Okay? Umate, and he died below banim, without children. So what happens? Vayibam Rabban Gamliel et Sarata. And Rabban Gamliel performed the Yibum with the co-wife. So the Gemara says, Vatispara Rabban Gamliel mitalmidei Beit Shammai hu? Can you suppose, even conjecture, that Rabban Gamliel would be among the students of Beit Shammai and follow their practice? Okay. Elishani bito shel Rabban Gamliel, but rather it was different regarding the daughter of Rabban Gamliel, the Ilonit Have, because she was an Ilonit. Ha, Midikatani Seifa. Here, however, just as was taught at the end of our Mishnah. Okay? Acherim omrim bito shel Rabban Gamliel Ailonit haita. That others said, okay, that the daughter of Rabban Gamliel was an Ailonit. In other words, she was incapable of giving birth. So in that situation, there was no choice but to perform either Yibum or Chalitza for the Sarah. Okay? Miklau, the Tanakama Savar, love Ailonit Haita. And why does it tell us this? Because the Tanakama was of the opinion that she was not an Ailonit. V'bayat ema. And if you want, I might say as follows: Kanas levasof geresh. Okay? That he married her, but then almost immediately divorced her. Ika beinaihu. That's the difference between the two explanations. Ibayat ema. And if you want, I might say yesh tna'ai b'bia ika beinaihu. Namely, that it was a conditional conjugal relations. That's what was the situation. Now, the Gemara goes on. Meitiv Rav Mesharshia. Rav Mesharshia challenged this with the following story. Maaseh Rabbi Akiva. There's an incident with Rabbi Akiva. Shaliket etrog be'echad b'shvat. That he picked an etrog off the tree on the 1st of Shvat, okay? And remember, there was a machloket in regarding when do we observe the New Year of the trees and deal with all sorts of, okay? On the 1st of Shvat or the middle of Shvat, right? V'nahag bo shnei asorim. And he took it 2 maasers, 2 tithes. Echad kedivrei Beit Shammai. One was according to Beit Shammai, who in that machloket who said it was the 1st of Shvat. Ve'echad kedivrei Beit Hillel, and the other said, according to Beit Hillel, that it was the 5th Tu B'Shvat. Okay, Shma mina asu. From this, we would seem to imply that Beit Shammai certainly followed their practices. Okay, we use that example. Rabbi Akiva was following the practice of Beit Shammai. That would seem to imply that Beit Shammai certainly followed what they preached, right? Rabbi Akiva, Gamre, Istafekle. No, says the Gemara, we can't learn from that Maaseh of Rabbi Akiva. Okay?
This is sort of a straddle opinion he's making. He's saying both years.
Let's see what the Gemara tells us, Eric. Right. Yeah. Rabbi Akiva Gamre, he learned it astafekle because he had a doubt. He was not sure. Velo yada I Beit Hillel be'echad b'shvat emor o b'tet vav b'shvat emor, because his doubt was whether Beit Hillel held by the 1st of Shvat or held by the 15th of Shvat. Okay?
It's not that he held like Beit Shammai, he held like Beit Hillel, but he doesn't know what Beit
There's Beit Hillel, what exactly they said. Okay? So what happens? All right? Gemara goes on. Meitiv Mar Zutra. So Mar Zutra challenges. And he says as follows. Maaseh v'yalda kalato shel Shammai hazakin. What about the following incident? Okay? Where the daughter-in-law of Shammai hazakin during Sukkot gave birth to a child. Upichat et hama'aziva. And he removed the plaster on top of the roof over the crib of the child, right? V'sichach al gabe mita, and he covered over with schach, that hole in the roof that he'd made, b'shvil katan, for the infant.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? Shma mina asu. from this we would learn that therefore, again, this incident seemed to tell us that what Beit Shammai held by, they carried out. They did it. All right? Hatam haroeh omer la'afushe avir ka'aved. No, there in that situation, in that incident, one who saw it could have said maybe he just simply wanted to allow more air. You know, they didn't have air conditioning, right? More air for the child to come into the room and into the area. And that's why he did it. Amat Metiv Marzutra. And Marzutra would have given another possible example, right? Maaseh b'shukat Yehu. We have an incident with the water trough of a man named Yehu, right? Shahaita b'Yerushalayim. And this water trough was a major tunnel or a major piece, right? In Jerusalem. Va'ita nikuva lemikvah. And it was attached then to a mikvah, all right? So the water flowed through that trough and filled the mikvah, all right? And what happens? V'chol taharot shahayu b'Yerushalayim ne'asin al gaba. And many people used that mikvah to immerse at least their utensils, if not more than just utensils. Okay? V'shalchu Beit Shammai v'herchivuha. And Beit Shammai sent some workmen there in order to enlarge the hole of at the bottom of the trough where it connected to the mikvah. Connected to the mikvah. Okay? So what happens? Vehechivuha, shebeit Shammai omrim, that according again to the view of Beit Shammai, ad sheyipachat beruba, until the opening was much larger. In other words, you had to have a larger opening between the trough and the mikvah, okay, to make it larger. Utznan, okay. So again, that incident would seem to tell us that Beit Shammai acted according to what their verbal position was, right? Utznan, and we learn elsewhere in another Mishnah, Eruv mikvaot kishfoferet hanud ba'oveha, that ordinarily the mixing, in other words, the connection between the mikvah and its piping, all right, what happens? Should be wide enough that the stream was the thickness of a straw, uvechalela kishtei etzbaot chozrot l'mikoman. And this we had previously in another Gemara, right? That we said the hole had to be big enough that you could put your two fingers and do an entire circle with your fingers to make it wide enough. So in other words, it was normally, I would say, about the size, right? If we do a sort of okay sign between the thumb and the, all right, which is not a small hole, okay? All right. Shma mina asu. Therefore, we would learn from this again, that Beit Shammai practiced what they preached, right? Hatam, there, says the Gemara, what happens? Haroeh omer, one who would see it might say, la'afu shemaya hu deka'ave, that they simply did it to increase the water flow, okay? And that was why they made the hole larger. Okay, says the Gemara, let's try another Braita, all right? Tashma, da'amar Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, says Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, K'shahayiti lomeid Torah etzel Rabbi Yochanan HaChorani. When I was young and I used to learn Torah with Rabbi Yochanan HaChorani, who was considered an outstanding scholar of Beit Shammai, okay? And he was one of the last of the, if I remember, Tanaim, okay? Ra'iti shahaya ochel pat chareva b'melech b'shnei batzar. I remember seeing that he would eat a dry piece of bread, all right, with salt on it during the years of famine. Okay, bati v'hodati et Abba. I went and I told my father. Rabbi Tzadok, his father, was well-to-do. Okay. Amarli, he said to me, Holech lo zeitim, bring him some olives. V'holachti lo, and I brought him. Ra'a otan shehein lachin. He saw that the olives were moist. Amarli, ein ani ochel zeitim. Okay, what was his concern? I don't eat olives. Why would he say I don't eat olives? If they were wet, he was concerned that that was machshir for them to become tamei. Okay, and therefore he was concerned about possible tuma, and therefore makpid on that and would not eat the olives or even handle them. Right? What happens? The Gemara goes on. Right, bati v'hodati et Abba. I went back and I told my father. Amarli, Rav Tzadok told him, Lech ve'emorlo. Go in back and tell him the following. Chavit nikuva haita. These olives were in a perforated barrel. Okay, or right? Let's use barrel for chavit. Cask, right? Could be, right? Ela shesatmuha shmarim, but the holes were sort of blocked somewhat by the schmutz, the remnants of the olives. Okay, utnan, and we've learned in a Mishnah, chavit shel zetim megul galim. Okay, a cask or a right of olives, of preserved olives. Beit Shammai omrim ein tzricha lenakeh. Beit Shammai says that the cask does not have to be perforated. Ubeit Hillel omrim tzricha lenakeh. Here, Beit Hillel is the more stringent, and they say no, the cask does have to be perforated. Umodim, but they acknowledge she'im nikva v'satmu hashmarim, that if it were perforated, but it was stopped up, the holes, right, the schmutz of the olives, right? Sheyehi tahora, that it would still be tahor. Okay, so in other words, okay, that would declare, right? So in other words, that whatever liquid is on there is simply the moisture of the olives themselves. Okay? Va'afal pi shetalmid Shammai hayat. And even though, right, we say, right, was Rabbi Tzadok himself was also a Talmid of Beit Shammai, as was, we said, Rabbi Yochanan Achorani, right? Kol ma'asav lo asa ela kedivrei Beit Hillel. All his deeds, okay, his actions, right, were all such according to Beit Hillel. And in this case, where Beit Hillel was the more stringent, he still followed it, and therefore Beit Shammai it would be acceptable to them. Okay? I amart b'shleima asu. So now we come back. If you're going to say then that Beit Shammai practiced what they preached, Hainu Rabute. Here we have an example that they're the majority. Ela Hiyamarta lo asu. If you're saying that they didn't, my Rabute, what majority do we need? Tashma. Listen to the following bright. Sha'alu at Rabbi Yoshua. They once asked Rabbi Yoshua the following question. Sarat habat mahu, the co-wife of a daughter. Okay, what's the status? What's her status? Okay. Amar lahem machloket Beit Shammai u Beit Hillel. That goes back to our top of the Amud from the previous play, right? We said Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel never came to a halachic solution. Okay, so what happens? V'halacha kedivrei mi, and there we come back now to this question. According to whom is the halacha? Amar lehem. He said to them, Mipnei ma atem machnisim roshi ben shnei harim gedolim. What are you putting my head between these great two mountains? In other words, why are you getting me involved in the machloket of these two great authorities? Okay? Ben shtei machlokot gedolot. All right? Between these two great arguments. Ben Beit Shammai ubein Beit Hillel. Right? Between the two of them. Mit ani shema yarutzu galgati. Because I'm afraid that maybe it would crack my head open, so to speak. Okay? I would go crazy trying to determine what the proper halacha. If the two of them couldn't come up with a halacha, how do you expect me to come up with an appropriate halacha in this circumstance? Aval, he says, Rabbi Yoshua, ani me'id lachem al shtei mishpachot. But I can give testimony about two families, gedolot, two great families, shahayu b'Yerushalayim, that existed in Jerusalem. Mishpachat Beit Tzvuim mi ben Achmai, the family of Beit Tzvuim, okay, who were descendants of Ben Achmai, u'mishpachat Beit Kupai mi ben Mikushash, and the family of Beit Kupai, who were descendants of Ben Mikushash. And these two women, okay, who were the heads, initial, right? Shehem B'nai Tzarot. They were the daughters of co-wives. Umehem Kohanim Gdolim, and from them were descended important Kohanim, V'shimshu al Gabei HaMizbeach, and they officiated, if I can use that term, at the altar in the right. So in other words, number one, it meant they certainly couldn't have been mamzerim, which we said was one concern of Beit Hillel, and number two, could they even have had a pagum? Because if they had a pagum in their family, even with that, Beit Shammai probably would not have accepted them either.
And Beit Shammai did not object to their
Being
Kohanim.
Kohen. Okay, good. Iyamart b'shlema asu. If you're going to say then that they practiced what they said, hainu dekamar mityarei ani. Therefore, we understand why Rabbi Yeshua said, I'm concerned lest I get into this whole balagan. Ela iyamart lo asu. But if you're going to say that they did not practice what they were,
What is he afraid of?
such a situation, amai ka'amar mityarei ani. Why did he even say that I'm afraid to be
Because they don't
involved?
do what they.
Right,
Right.
I didn't do. Unehi nami da'asu. And from here, it would seem to imply that they did practice it. My mityarei. If that's the case, what was he afraid of?
Right.
Ha amar Rabbi Yoshua. Here is what Rabbi Yoshua says. Ein mamzer ela mechayve mitot beitin. That we do not have somebody declared or considered to be a mamzer unless it was on those cases where they are subject to the death penalty based on the court. Okay? Nehi nami the mamzer
His chayiv chorus,
is
not chayiv.
based in. Right. Nehi nami the mamzer lo have. Okay, let us assume then that certainly they would not be considered mamzerim. Pagum mihu have. Okay, perhaps they had a pagum. in this case. Maybe there, mikal v'chomer me'almana, perhaps based on a kal v'chomer from a almana, from a widow situation. Ma almana she'ein isura noheg b'chol bana pagum, whereas an almana, that her prohibition is such, right, that it is something to be practiced by all.
She'einu no.
She'ein isura, that her prohibition is not practiced.
In other words, the almana is only also the Kohen Gadol.
Well, oh, right.
Otherwise, a normal person,
Regarding other people,
she could
right?
marry an almana.
bana pagum, but it could be that her progeny could be in a situation of pagum. Zo she'isura shaveh b'kol, when where the prohibition is applicable, all right, to many, all right, there is in that a kal v'chomer, therefore that would be,
Children would be.
we have a pagum and therefore not be able to serve. All right, so what happens? Okay, so this was the question that was asked to Rabbi Yoshua. Okay, kavu minei tzarot, and they therefore established a practice from this in terms of the co-wives. Ukapashit le b'nei tzarot. All right, and therefore it seemed logical to answer it therefore in terms of the progeny of co-wives. Tarte kabai mine tzarot mai. Okay, so two of them, we say,
Two questions.
two items here, okay, is what we raise as questions from him. Tzarot mai, what's the status of the co-wives? Ve'im timsa lomar tzarot kebeit Hillel. And if you're going to say that we're going to determine the status of co-wives according to Beit Hillel, b'nei tzarot, the children of these co-wives, the Beit Hillel, the Beit Shammai mahu, according then the view of Beit Hillel, according to the view of Beit Shammai, what's their status? Lamai nafka mina. So what's going to be the difference from them? What's the result? Lamivshat Vlad machzir grushato lebeit Hillel. We might answer then, okay, that it is like the progeny of one who takes back his divorced wife to Beit Hillel. In other words, that in that case, we would say that they're over on a normal love and not over on a karet, okay, and therefore they might have the pagum, right? Mi ka'amrin and kal v'chomer. Is it possible then to utilize this kal v'chomer? Uma almana lekohen gadol. And whereas an almana in relation to a kohen gadol, she'ein isura shaveh b'kol, that her prohibition then doesn't apply to all others. Bana pagum. In that case, her child,
She married the Kohen
Kohen,
Gadol into
that
the
case,
child, the
that child would be have a pagum. Zo she'isura shaveh b'kol, one whose prohibition then applies, I'm going to say to all, eino din shebana pagum. Is it not logical then that her child would have this pagum? Okay. O dilma, or perhaps ikela mifrach. It's possible to challenge the kal v'chomer and say as follows: Mala almana, whereas regards the widow, shehi atzma mitchalelet. She herself is considered. I don't know. I'm not sure. Based, what's the best? Mitchalel. She is desanctified. Okay. In other words, she's not eligible for any kohen. Right? Why? Because of her status of an almanah. Va'amar laho, and we said to them, sarot, regarding the co-wives, mityare'ani, I'm afraid. Right? What happens there? All right? Banei tzarot ani me'id lachem. All right? He says, but the children of tzarot, I can give testimony. And then I'm just going to finish it up. But Tashma, listen to the Braita, B'yamei Rabbi Dosa ben Hirkanes, who trat tzarat habat la'achim. Okay, that in the days of Rabbi Yochanan ben Dusa, Rabbi Dusa ben Hirkanes, they permitted the co-wives of the daughter to the brothers. And we'll stop right there. Okay. All right. So this way we'll pick up. Okay, it continues our discussion, but that was a point that it seemed appropriate to pause. Okay, everybody have a good day and stay well.
Welcome back, Dick.